Thank you for sharing that with us. If we look at the story of Buddha, he didn't become enlightened in a temple. He was under a tree, he was in nature, he was open. The thing is that enlightenment is universal, but when enlightenment turns into a system, into a dogma, or when you have certain individuals who have a certain level of training and whether they're trying to teach others, there's a tendency to confine it to, in some ways, only according to their teachings. But enlightenment is universal because Buddha is an example of enlightenment, so is Mansur al-Halaj, and so are the Christian mystics, and so are some Jews. And so are some people who are not necessarily from a certain religion or spiritual tradition. So enlightenment is available to everyone. There are stories of Zen masters who have become enlightened over a cup of tea. Not in a temple, but over a cup of tea. So enlightenment is a concept that is universal and it's accessible to everyone. However, I want to point out that the word enlightenment is relative. It can have many different interpretations and it can have many different levels. So, for example, if we were to take an ocean and say that represents enlightenment, and say there's a person standing right by the sand, and where the water meets the sand, and they're looking at the ocean, just as an example. So, if the person looking at the ocean, for one person to describe enlightenment, they'll say, "Yeah, I have had an experience of enlightenment. I actually saw the ocean." And that would be accurate according to their level. Then another person might say, well, I dipped my finger into the water. I not only looked at it, but I dipped my finger into the water and I had a deeper experience. Another person will say, well, you only dipped your finger. I actually had my feet in it, knee deep. I could see it, I could feel it, even more than what you did. That would be accurate too. Then another person would say, well, you only experienced it from the outside. I actually jumped into the ocean and became one with it. So my understanding of enlightenment is different. So enlightenment has many different levels, going from basic level to a much deeper, higher level. It depends on the level of your soul. So every person who says that I've tasted enlightenment, or those few, it's not that they're lying, or that what they're saying is not true. It's just that that level, that experience of enlightenment is limited to that level of individual consciousness. Okay? It's just like when I said earlier that you could study math in grade 3, 5, 8, 10, and at the PhD level, it's going to vary. It's not that the person at grade 5, when they're saying, well, this is what math is, it's not that they're wrong. The issue is that you're only experiencing math at the grade 5 level. We're not arguing that, but you can experience it at a grade 10 level, grade 11 level too, depending on the level of your soul. So enlightenment has many different layers and many different levels of consciousness. And depending on our level, we will only experience the universal light according to our capacity. Right? So if I'm approaching enlightenment from a grade 5 level, God will only give me as much as I can take. But if I'm more mature, and if I'm more deeper and more higher or more open, then I'll experience it at a higher level. And both the statements are true, but it's just that there are different levels, right? But when we hear of the concept of enlightenment from enlightened masters like Jesus or Prophet Muhammad or Krishna, their level of enlightenment and what they're talking about is way beyond human comprehension. It's at the highest level, right? So it's like that they're at the top of the pyramid, and then they're trying to bring that essence down to our level. So they're going from no form and pure essence to form and, conceptualizing and intellectualizing and interpretation and all that. So it's going from a very high level of essence where there is no form, no colors, no human interaction, no intellect. They're taking it from that level and they're bringing it down to a very basic level. But what Noreen mentioned is interesting because enlightenment is something that's universal, and sometimes when you come out and make a statement that it's only possible to achieve enlightenment or growth through this particular system, Christians may think it's Christianity and Muslims think it's Islam, and you have to do the Shahada, and Hindus may be thinking their way. This is the difference between understanding of religion and spirituality. Now, spirituality is universal. I would add that, however, you do need a guide. The word guru today is used very loosely, and you have gurus for everything today. Guru actually is a Sanskrit word which means someone who takes you from darkness to light. dispeller of darkness, right? So it also means someone, a guru or a sadguru, is a sage or a master who understands truth, sadguru, or one who can take you from darkness to light. So it is true that at different levels you do need teachers and you need preceptors, right? But in my opinion, the ultimate gurus are the totally divinely enlightened gurus. Like Krishna is the ultimate guru, Jesus can be a guru, Nanak can be a guru. There are a lot of other teachers out there right now, but they're all junior teachers or junior gurus, in my opinion. And you need junior gurus too to teach you, because if there's nobody there to teach you grade 5 or grade 6 or grade 7, how are you going to go to grade 8? So say you have a teacher who's only qualified to teach primary school. Say you can only teach up to grade 5. So that teacher is still a teacher of grade 5, but the knowledge that that teacher has is not the same as a university teacher, just as an example. And a university teacher is not the same as a PhD. You see what I'm saying? So it's interesting that the term guru is used very loosely for now, which it shouldn't be. Like you have financial gurus and you have health gurus and you have nutrition gurus and dot. It just keeps going. That's not the way guru is meant to be used. It has a specific spiritual significance. It's referring to an enlightened master who can take you from darkness to light. If you look at the very old scriptures, for example, the Vedas, some say they're over 5,000 years old, some say 3,000, some say 8,000, but they're very old, probably the oldest scriptures on the planet. The person who put these scriptures in written form, his name is Ved Vyas. And his real name is Krishna Dwaipa. His name was also Krishna. So normally when you hear of Krishna, it's referring to the author of the Gita, right? Arjun's master, who was the incarnation of God. But Vyas, Maharishi Vyas, his name was also Krishna, and he's the one who put all the scriptures in written form. And the word Ved Vyas means the divider of the Vedas. So he was another enlightened master who was also one with the essence, right? So when you refer to the word guru, essentially at the highest level, these are the gurus that we should be looking to for wisdom and enlightenment. So Krishna was the ultimate guru, Vyas was a guru, Prophet Muhammad, Jesus. These are highly enlightened masters whose understanding of enlightenment is at the highest level. Okay? And when they give their enlightenment to us, they're going from here to here. So they're going from top to bottom and we're going from bottom to top. That's the difference, right? We're like students that's going from kindergarten to grade 2 to grade 10, where they're like masters who are coming from the highest level of enlightenment and coming down to our level to give us what we can understand. That's why Holy Scriptures can have multiple interpretations. You can take one verse of the Veda or the Bible or the Quran and you can come up with multiple interpretations, but your interpretation will only be according to your level of understanding. So like Prophet Muhammad said, the internal interpretation, which can also be known as esoteric or spiritual interpretation, you're not ready for it, so I'm not going to give it to you, right? If you haven't learned your ABCs, you're not going to learn how to read, right? If you can't read, you can't write. So start off with the ABCs first. There's no point in me teaching you grade 10 and grade 12 and PhD if you yourself haven't graduated from kindergarten or grade 1. I think Prophet Muhammad, in a sense, was trying to mention to relay that to us. So I just want to point out that on the one hand, you do need teachers, like this retreat that Noreen went to. I'm sure they can do a lot of good for a lot of people too. But on the other hand, there are many levels of spirituality and enlightenment that are beyond their level too. But if you come out and say that you have to use this system, this is a proven system, it's only this system that's going to work, that's inaccurate. That's not true. There are many different systems, and everyone will say, use this one or use this one. Spirituality is universal. That's the point I want to make. And if you're ready for it, it can happen to you at any time. It can happen over a cup of tea. It can happen in nature. It could happen between sunset and sunrise. You have to be ready for it. It's just that you have to do the necessary preparations, right? And also I want to add that even if you get one drop or one glimpse of enlightenment in your life, if you take that one drop and you put it on one end of the scale, and you take your entire life's accomplishments, all your accolades, your degrees, your money, your business, your family, put it on one side. Guess what? That little drop of experience that you had of enlightenment will outweigh everything else in the material world. So spiritual achievements and material accomplishments are two different things altogether, and don't mix up the two. These are two different things altogether. Is there any other comment or question that anyone had?
So, yeah, I was just gonna say, um, that just to go off of what Nurin was just saying, it was very weird. Yesterday I met somebody who had been to the ashram in India, and he'd been there he'd gone 3 or 4 times. And I feel like the reason people go to these places is because they cannot focus on the spirituality here at their own home, right? And so they feel like they need to, especially if we go to a spa or whatever. And I feel like a lot of these meditation retreats are very money making. Like to get, and not the one in India, but the one in some other places are like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yes.
And you're on this detox diet, you're meditating, you're doing yoga. They have you on a certain plan for those 30 days, and apparently your life is supposed to change within that whole month. So, and people do it, a lot of people do it, but he seemed to think that this was the only way to his enlightenment, is to go to this. So it's quite interesting that we're having this discussion now, because I think the problem is that, yes, if I want to just focus on my meditation, then I go somewhere else, that there is no chaoticness in I'm kind of running away from my life, really, to go get spirituality from somewhere else.
But also, yeah. I mean, Momo, before you comment, I also feel like there's just this thirst and there's this yearning, because we're in a society where we almost can't detach, right? Like we're set up in a way where,
that's what I was saying,
where you're always like, you can't get that, you can't sort of get that solitude that you desire, almost, with the amount of mental activity and all that. So I think part of it is just people, they want that escape because they just can't, they feel uneasy here. They can't figure out another way. How can it's like, we're not built for all this, like, you know what I mean? Like, so I think part of that, like, if you I don't this retreat I went to, I don't recommend it, but if you told me I could go to India for a month to an ashram, like, I would feel really happy about that. Like, I would
it'd be a nice experience, but would it, like,
but like you said, it's like you said, you have to achieve it here and now to escape the world and to find peace and happiness. You haven't really achieved anything, because you have to come back here, right? It's not reality.
It's almost like when you go on vacation and it's like, 2 weeks you're calm, and come back, you come to the same kind of crap that you deal with here.
Yeah.
So and this is one thing he said. He's like, I go there because when I'm here in Toronto, I have to worry about my spouse, and I have to worry about my kid. No, he doesn't have kids, but his in-laws and things like that. But there's too much to worry about here. He can't escape.
So, it's a few different things, because in your natural environment, in your home, and in your everyday activities, there's a certain energy that you have in the house. Okay, so sometimes when people say, well, go to a retreat or go somewhere else, it's a change of energy, it's a change of place, right? Now, the temple or the place that you're going to, it doesn't necessarily mean that the energy there is that much better. In some places maybe it is, in some places it isn't, but it's just a change of environment mentally or psychologically makes an impact on you, right? That's one thing. Another thing is that the reason people are looking to go somewhere else to get some kind of an experience or to make some kind of a difference is because they cannot achieve it in their own house. Okay? Now, you've heard the saying that basically everything is energy, right? Your physical body is an energy. If you put it under a microscope, there's movement. You can say the physical body is a form of energy, but it's in a very basic state. Okay? Your emotions create energy. Your thoughts create energy, and they're scientifically proving that too. And you can say that maybe the deepest part of you, the one that resonates at the highest level, is your soul, your spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only problem is that in your environment, what kind of energy are you taking out?
Mm-hmm.
The place that you're living in, if the energy comes from emotions like anger and fear and sadness and arguments, then when you sit in meditation, you're not going to feel like you're getting anywhere. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you take responsibility for the type of energy you're taking out in your surroundings, I can almost guarantee you when you sit to meditate, it will do something for you. It'll have some kind of an impact. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, in a similar way, when you go away to an ashram or a temple, there's energy there too. Now, what people don't realize is that, for example, say people go to a mosque or they go to a church and there's a congregation, right? So say you have 2,000 people in there. Say you have 1,000 people or 2,000. The collective energy of those people is coming out in that building, whether it's a church or a mosque or a synagogue. If that collective energy is negative, then even when you go to the mosque, you're actually breathing in that negative energy. Okay? But on the other hand, if for some reason in that collective vibration, in that congregation, the energy is actually a bit more positive than your own energy, then you'll actually get a boost. Do you see what I'm saying? But if the collective energy is negative, you'll actually end up feeling worse. And this has happened. If you go there with an open mind, this will happen. So it's not that, in a sense, it's that specific temple or that Buddhist temple that she went to that, it's the chosen one for God. No. You may go there and you may feel a difference because the energy there was slightly better than your own environment. You'll feel something, right? But there are some people that will go there and say, I didn't get anything, or I actually felt worse. Because your energy or your vibration is actually a bit better than what you picked up over there. Do you see what I'm saying?
And I
So-
also, sorry.
So enlightenment is not specific to a specific place or a temple. If that was the case, because Buddha himself became enlightened in nature under a tree, it wasn't in a temple. You know what I mean? But say, for example, you have someone going through a temple and they're trying to cultivate the energy or the vibration there. They're trying to make it more positive. Then if a person from the outside comes to that temple, they may feel a certain lift. Do you see what I'm saying? But then the minute you leave that temple or that place and you go back to your old way of life, your energy goes from here to here. Again, you're going back the same way. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to, if you're willing to do the work, then your spiritual growth and enlightenment can happen in your own house. Your own house can become a temple. But when you don't know how to do that, then you go to other temples to look for a better experience. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, some people are not at the level, they just can't fix their own energy or vibration, so they want to go outside to get something better, whether it's a temple or an ashram or to travel. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe for them it works for a short time. You know what I mean? But then when they go back to their old life, they go back to that energy again. Where ideally what you want to do is change the energy in your own house. And you can only do that if you change your energy from the inside first. Right? Because your place, your home is the energy that you're breathing in and out all the time. So if you can fix that, then even your spiritual growth can go to a certain level. Okay? But if we were to talk about young souls, intermediate souls, and old souls, young souls just don't know how to do that because their consciousness is essentially emotional and mental. They don't know what spiritual consciousness is. So if they sit to meditate, they don't know where to start, or they don't know what meditation is, or they don't know what to get. Do you see what I'm saying? But for an older soul, in my opinion, you can actually achieve more spiritual growth in your own house, in your own room, compared to going anywhere else. Because you're more connected to the universal light. Yeah.
And can I just make a comment? Just because I did, well, that's one of the things that I discussed with him is that, even if you can go, we discussed like maybe creating a space in your house where you're just meditating in that area. You know what I mean? And that is like your relaxation place, like creating that just in your home. And, even just going for a walk or going in the park, I feel the same kind of energy that I would have gone to a meditation retreat. Actually,
Right.
it's better there.
Exactly. So you're connecting with a higher vibration of energy in these places, in your own room or in nature, which is even better than what you can get maybe at a retreat or in a temple. Because you have the ability to connect in those places where other people don't. You see what I'm saying?
Somebody said to me, you need to go to Machu Picchu. Somebody said that to me recently, and I said, listen, maybe it's good for a boost.
Right.
But but I don't know if your life is going to change.
So God chose that place with a magic wand. It's so special that you have to go there. It doesn't work that way. This whole creation has light of God in it. If you look at any of the great masters, like Prophet Muhammad says that there's not a single not a single space or a single place where God's light is not there. Every atom and every molecule is vibrating with the light of God. Not just the Buddhist temple or the mosque, no, everywhere. It's just that we can't connect with it. If you look at Krishna, he says, I'm everywhere to Arjun. There's not a single place in this creation where I'm not there, spiritually. Okay? Everywhere. I'm everywhere. Jesus Christ said, look for the kingdom of heaven within you. Right? So God is actually inside of you. There's a very famous saying of the prophet where he says that God revealed to me that I cannot be contained in the heaven and earth, but I can be contained within the heart of a true follower. So if you want me, look for me there. So not only is God outside all around in every atom, God is actually inside of us. But these people are saying, no, you can only find enlightenment in God here in this particular area. And that's not true, because God is universal. You see what I'm saying, right? Now, different people go to congregations and they do rituals for different reasons. If it offers you a form of discipline, then that's fine, right? But as often I've said that religion should lead you to spirituality. Religion on its own is not enlightenment. It won't get into enlightenment. But religion is a form of discipline, hopefully to make you a better human being, to improve your karma, to make you aware God is there. Maybe even start prayers, because prayers is like an introduction to the higher level of meditation. So you have to start somewhere, right? So the discipline is there. So if your religion gives you discipline, why not? It's good. But if you think that spiritual growth and enlightenment is only by doing that, that's a mistake, because that religion is only one foundation and there are multiple foundations you have to build to go into enlightenment. That's the difference between the two, right?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for sharing that with us. It was very good. Anyone else? Any comments? Any questions? Nurdin, how about you?
No, I was thinking like in the witnessing, like that tool itself does actually help a lot. Especially I work in a healthcare facility. It helps me to connect with my patients so that in my best ability I can do my work and at the same time hopefully help them in to help them with whatever I can with this meditation and the healing that I do. So it does actually help quite a bit, and it makes my job a bit easier, because if I get affected personally, it lets me later on create that space that I can then go back the next day and still be able to perform my actions and my work without actually getting too much involved in it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's thanks for bringing that up. That's precisely what witnessing is supposed to train you to do. It's to use your energy consciously and wisely. And actually, witnessing can help you to preserve your actions and your energy in a way where it doesn't get wasted in the wrong way. Sometimes when you become over emotional, or if your mental body becomes overactive, so much energy goes into that, and then at the end of the day you're tired. You can't take it anymore.
Yes.
You become exhausted. But if you do it as a witness, you keep your emotions in check. So when you're performing an action, you don't have to do it with too much anger or too much control or too much expectation, because emotional content now is being controlled. You can control your tone. You don't have to get angry as much. You don't have to use as many words. So you can actually do your job in a more efficient way and conserve your energy too. That's what witnessing allows you to do. And it's also the realization that different people are at different levels. They're only going to learn and change when they're ready. So if you're expecting certain things to be a certain way with your job, with your boss, with your kids or your partner, it ain't going to happen. And witnessing gives you that understanding. It can take several lifetimes for them to learn and grow, right? You can go on banging your head on them if you want, but it's not going to happen. So witnessing allows you to do that as well. right? So it keeps you in a constant state of awareness and detachment. Work on what you have to do, don't worry about the rest. Be detached from that.
Yeah.
That's the main idea.
Yeah, and also it helps me learn that I can't do more for them than what I'm already giving them.
Yes.
We all have to work our parts in our journey. Even though I would like to help, but forcing the issue won't really make as much of a difference. If I just stay and help in whichever way I can, it makes it easier to also to cope with whatever they're going through.
Exactly. And when you're on the path of spirituality, you do have to become more selective. You have to know how much time to spend with a person and how much not to spend. You know, how much is a part of their learning and growth, and how much are they going to go according to your instruction. Who do you want to hang around with, and who you don't want to hang around with. Some people don't change their whole life. It doesn't matter how nice you are to them or what you give them. They just don't want to do it. So let them, it's okay. Let them learn and grow their own way, you know? So that understanding and that wisdom is a part of witnessing, and it's a part of growth. And you'll see that as you go more higher on the spiritual scale, you will become more selective with the type of people you hang around as well. Because you know how we're talking about different levels, young souls, intermediate. If you connect with the spirit, you'll actually get an idea of that too. And you'll begin to realize, oh, okay, maybe this person is not quite there or not quite ready. So I don't want to waste my time and energy on them too, because they're not going to go according to what I'm saying, or they're not going to follow. They don't want to make these changes. So it's better to leave them alone and let them grow their own way. You know, some people, like Michael Newton says in his book, you know, some people take 3, 4, 5,000 years just to get over one aspect of anger. You know what I mean? And one person was able to master anger, but they couldn't master control. They're still control freaks. So it might take a few thousand years for that to get fixed. It's not our job to force them to fix it, but we can use our wisdom and use our energy and time wisely. We should know how much time to spend with them and how much not, and even who to spend time with and who not. That you have to use your wisdom in that way. Yeah. Is there anyone else that had a comment? So, I was just going to ask was, okay, Noreen, I'll just throw this one in. So was the witnessing meditation helpful to you guys? Were you able to relax through it, and did it make sense for you? It resonated with you?
I do have a couple of questions. One of them is, oh yeah, so you were talking about, Momut, about detachment. How do you detach from children? And that may be a question for, like, I know that we've got Munira and as a parent here. So how do you detach yourself as a parent from children and yet remain a good parent and yet try to progress in your spirituality? And my next question is, which I'm struggling now, and I think you touched on that last time too, and it actually made me really, really sad or very not skeptical, but it made me really, really kind of depressed because if you are sad in this life, and I know it's like very low level of consciousness, because let's say grief, and grief could be life, it can take the whole life. You don't, like, grief is such a complex thing, and people can die and still be grieving. And it kind of didn't bring me any hope, or I lost hope that, okay, am I gonna bring this grief or this sadness with me to, like, I know that my role here is probably to clear myself of that and try to elevate myself, but what if it's not possible? Then you bring into another level of to another life, and it's a little bit it's like with the control, when you were talking about that it can take thousands of lives to get rid of control. So it made me a little bit, even more sad, or it kind of killed the hope.
Sure.
Can you talk
Sure.
to that?
Yes.
Speak to that? So
Okay, so there's a few things. I have your two questions, but even before that, when you were talking about science and researching and trying to learn about what happens after death, so there are four basic levels of consciousness that we have. One is animal consciousness.
Okay.
Then there's human consciousness.
That was my question for you too, actually.
Then there's mental or intellectual consciousness, and then there's spiritual consciousness. Okay. Human consciousness, the animal kingdom revolves around it, but so do a lot of humans. It's the basic consciousness of survival. Okay. Eating, sleeping, procreating, becoming territorial. There's a lot of love in the animal kingdom. There's a lot of intelligence and love there too. You hear about dolphins and whales and bees, which are very important for the environment. Therapy dogs, therapy cats. So that's animal consciousness. When you come into human consciousness, it's part animal and part human. So the animal instincts are still there. So the survival mechanism is there, the control mechanism is there, and the loving mechanism is there, and being territorial, and it's a mixture of animal and human consciousness. And eventually the higher qualities of human is to be compassionate and to be loving, and family unity and forgiving and so on and so forth. So there's animal consciousness, human consciousness. Then there's mental or intellectual consciousness. Okay. Now scientists, they're using the lens of science to study and to understand certain aspects of God's creation. So mental or intellectual consciousness, science is a big part of it. So the lens that they use to study about the universe and certain phenomena of the universe and creation, life after death, so on and so forth, it's done through the lens of science. So in other words, it's done through the lens of the intellect. Okay? So whatever the human mind or the human intellect can study through science, in this case, they want to study life after death, or what happens to humans after they die. Now, between intellectual consciousness and spiritual consciousness, there are different layers. Okay? So there are some scientists or individuals who will only study purely on the laws of science. Well, they use mathematics and chemistry, and you could call it Newtonian science. Some people talk about Aristotle. Then there's another type of science that sometimes they refer to as quantum physics, right, of Einstein. Okay. Then there are other levels of science as well. Now I feel that on the one hand, so there's a bridge or a gap. On the one hand, on the lower end, you have the intellectual consciousness, where science is, and on the top you have spirituality. Now in between the two, there are different types of individuals and different types of consciousness. So you could have a scientist who is not open to spirituality at all, and who is purely studying life after death, the environment, nature, creation, from a purely scientific lens, based on formulas only, and math and science, so on and so forth. However, recently, or in the last few years, spirituality has given birth to scientists who are willing to look at science from a different model, from a different paradigm, right? And that's where quantum physics comes in, and Einstein comes in, and you're talking about energy. Everything is energy. So now your vision or your understanding of science, you're increasing it just from the literal science model to a more open model, where you have different paradigms and different theories, right? When you're approaching spirituality through the intellectual lens, the more open-minded you can be, the more it allows you to grow spiritually. Okay? So those scientists who don't know what spirituality is, or who have not experienced spirituality, but who are more open-minded to spiritual concepts, in my opinion, they're growing more towards spirituality compared to a scientist who is not interested in spirituality, or who looks at the world purely from a literal scientific lens. You see what I mean? So what I'm saying is there are many levels between the intellectual consciousness where science is there and spirituality. And different people in their own way are talking about it. Like, for example, neurosurgeons and doctors and them who have had near-death experiences, like Ibn Alexander, and a lot of other people. Michael Newton is a PhD, Brian Weiss is a doctor. They're very open to spirituality, even though they're doctors and scientists. They're very open to spirituality, as opposed to a scientist who's not open to any of this stuff, unless their mathematical and scientific formulas give them that information. There's a difference between the two. So there's a difference between an open-minded scientist who looks literally through the lens of science, and a scientist who is still open to spirituality or other paradigms, which allows them to learn more. You see, there's a difference between the two. And there are categories and layers between the two. So in my opinion, in the last few years, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, science, there are certain individuals within the scientific field who have become more open to spirituality. And more so with those people who have had personal experiences. Like Ibn Alexander, I think he's a neurosurgeon, or he is a specialized doctor who had a near-death experience. Now, because he had this experience, he's a lot more open now to science evolving towards spirituality compared to a person like him who has not had an experience, just as an example. Brian Weiss is another one, right? Medical doctor who specializes in mental diseases, psychologist, right? Same thing. He had all these spiritual experiences while he was training. So here you have another scientist, because of his experiences, are opening up to the boundary of spirituality. So individuals like these who are more open-minded are going more towards spiritual growth compared to a purely literal scientist who just relies on formulas and the intellect and they're not willing to go higher, right? So like I said, there are different levels of consciousness: animal, human, intellectual, and then there's spiritual. People who are at a high level of spirituality don't care whether it's scientific or not. Who cares, right? Even though there is room for science, it's part of God's creation. But I'm just saying, for them, whether it's scientific or not, it doesn't make a difference, because this is what we experience with our own spirituality. So whether science agrees with it or not, it doesn't make a difference. Then there are those in between the two that says, wait a second, there is a scientific explanation to these spiritual theories as well, right? And it could be this. So they're creating a bridge between science and spirituality, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that just like there are different levels of consciousness, going from intellectual to spiritual consciousness, there are different layers of consciousness, and there are different individuals at different levels. So some people who, for example, study near death will use pure science and no spirituality, where other scientists who are open to other paradigms and other models and spiritual concepts will take a much more broader approach. Do you see what I'm saying? But ultimately, in my opinion, you still have to evolve from intellect to spirituality. At some point, it's going to happen. If your scientific lens helps you to go towards spirituality, it's great. But if your scientific lens is literal and doesn't allow you to grow, then it's a bit of a waste, right? So I'm just giving you my opinion. Yeah. So that's what I would say about science and spirituality, because they are connected. And in our creation, God has given us nature, science, art, music, philosophy. All these different aspects of God's creation are meant to be used as tools to grow spiritually. But if you use them as tools and stay purely on an intellectual level, and if it doesn't help you to grow, then it's a waste. Okay? And also, if you become attached to these nice things like nature, music, art, science, if you become attached to it, and if you don't grow from it, then you're using God's creation in a very limited way, which doesn't allow you to grow. So the reason God has given us all these beautiful things is so that we can use it as a foundation to grow and to go higher. But if we get attached to it and if we don't grow, then all these wonderful things that God is giving to us, we're taking it at a very literal, superficial value, where it's not providing any kind of growth for us. I hope what I'm saying is making sense.
Yeah, so if I take it literally, all the Hollywood should elevate to spirituality.
Very well put. Very well put.
Right?
Yeah.
That they
If
are
it
not.
if it just becomes popularity and money, and expensive lifestyle, then it's taking you in the wrong direction. You're using art and success and prosperity in a way where it's just making your ego grow, but not your soul, not your spirituality.
So it's going the other way.
Exactly.
Then.
Exactly. And in my opinion, they can make the mistake now, but in the future, when they go in the spirit world, they realize that they need to correct that. And Michael Newton's life between lives, when you reassess your past lives, what you did right and what you do wrong, that's what you begin to learn. Okay? So first, that was the first thing I wanted to comment. Now going to your questions. As a parent, how do you fulfill your role as a parent and at the same time, right? At the same time, don't forget your spiritual purpose, that these kids are your kids, but at the same time, they're not just your kids. There's something else as well, meaning they also have a soul within them. So how do you perform your role as a mother or as a father and be a good parent, and at the same time, don't get swayed just in that direction and forget about the spiritual aspect as well, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. So there was this saying, I think it was from Khalil Gibran, that your kids come through you, but they don't come from you. Something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? So parents give birth to their children, that is true. And a mother status is very high. Prophet Muhammad talked about that heaven and earth is at the feet of a mother. So a mother status is very high. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, there's a spiritual aspect that you have to understand, that we don't give birth to their spirits. God gives birth to them. So the ultimate mother is still the universal light. We're small symbols of them, but the ultimate mother and the ultimate father is still your creator. That's where our soul comes from. So the whole idea here is to try to fulfill your role as a mother, but again, do it in a detached way. There's a difference between over-attachment with family, okay, and family unity. It's two different things. Okay? When I say family unity, I'm generally saying that if you have a relatively good mother and a relatively good father and relatively good kids, your family environment is such that the mother and father will, to a certain level, provide as their responsibilities of a parent. And hopefully the kids will also benefit from that. And, get their basic nurturing from the parents. Okay, so on the one hand, you're trying to be a good parent. Okay, you want to nurture them, you want to show them the way, you want to provide for them, you want them to get the knowledge so that when they grow up, they can survive on their own. But on the other hand, you also want to remember that these kids came through me, but their soul didn't come through me. Okay, they've come with their own purpose, they've come with their own mission. I don't know how long they're going to live, right? So these, at some point, every parent should come to an awareness or a realization that I have a certain physical, biological responsibility as a mother or as a father, okay? But me, as well as my kids, have a certain spiritual responsibility as well, which has to be fulfilled. And I have to take care of both. And quite frankly, if you truly want to be a good mother or a good father, if you only look after their physical, emotional, and mental aspects, say you nurture them and support them, but you're only nurturing their physical health, their physical part, their emotional and mental part, but you're not nurturing their spiritual part, then there's one very important part that you're not taking care of, that God wants you to take care of. If you as a parent can explain to your kids that it's not just the physical education and the physical survival that's important, there's another part of you that you have to take care of, which is your soul or your spirit, whatever way you wanna word it, it's fine. But there's another part of you that needs to be taken care of. That's what the job of a true parent is, in my opinion. So you're not just nurturing their mind and their body, but you're nurturing their spirit. And that's something very important that you want to keep in mind. And I think, with parents, you want to sort of put a layer of protection over them. So sometimes you smother them with a motherly love, and you don't want any bad thing to happen to them, and you want to give them, you just want to be the best parent ever that you can be. Okay, in one way that's very good, but in another way you have to be a little bit more open than that, because there are certain things you cannot protect them from. You cannot protect them from their karma, you cannot protect them from their experiences. You don't know what they've done in their past lives. You only know their body since they were born from you in this life, right? There's nothing else you know about them. So what I'm trying to say is that every parent has to open up their mind to another aspect of their child which you cannot normally see. Your child may end up doing something that you don't want them to do, but it might be part of their karmic path, whether you want them to do it or not. So you have to know what your boundary is. Okay, so figure out what your boundary is as a mother and a father. Provide for them in the best way possible, but don't overstep your boundary. Because spiritually and karmically, they come with their own karmic plan. And you have to let them follow their destiny. Does that make sense to you? Which I know is not an easy thing to do. But again, you're not here just to be a mother to the physical, emotional, and mental part. You want to nurture their spirit too. And nurturing their spirit means that you have to respect their karma. You have to respect their actions. Whatever they've brought with them from the past life, whatever they're meant to do in this life, you have to respect that. Let them do it. And a lot of things that they're going to do doesn't involve you. It involves them learning on their own. Through their actions, through their mistakes, through the choices they make. That only they can do by learning how to use their free will the right way. Okay? So you can give them instructions on how to use their free will, but how they're going to learn how to use it depends on when they get a chance to actually use it. And you have to let them do that on their own. You have to step away from that. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a fine line between overdoing it as a mother and not doing enough. You want to try to do enough as a mother, but there are other things you can't give to them. Only God can give to them, and you want them to learn and to grow. So I hope that makes sense to you. Right? That was one of your questions. The other question was what you take with you before you die. So for example, say there was a lot of sadness in your life. You had a sad life, you had a difficult life. It's time for you to go. You die with that sadness. So that energy that you created with you, with your sadness, will go up with you. Okay? But when you go up, your consciousness now is more spiritual and less emotional. It's more spiritual and less physical. When you go up, you know the truth. You'll look at yourself and you'll tell yourself, oh, I did this, and this. But why did I do this? You're not saying, why did that person do it? You're telling yourself, why did I act this way? This is not the way I'm supposed to act. Even God doesn't need to tell you. And the reason you know it is because you're in a state of higher awareness when you go up. Your physical body is not there. Your emotional and mental body is at a minimum. So your spiritual consciousness is very high. So now you're looking at your own life that you lived physically, emotionally, and mentally, but you're looking at it from a spiritual perspective now. Much bigger, much greater. You'll be in a position to tell yourself and even to tell others, if there's guardian angels or family members, I'm looking at my own life and I don't agree with a lot of things I did. So for example, say you had a lot of sadness. It will go up with you, but you'll be in a state to see that you actually created that sadness, right? And you actually built that sadness, that energy, and you brought it up with you. You'll be in a state to see that. What you'll be saying to yourself at that point is, okay, now how do I correct this? I don't agree with what I did. I built up all this anger, or I built up all this fear, or this sadness, or sometimes I acted in a way I shouldn't have because I got emotional. You're going to know that in the spirit world. Even God won't even have to come and tell you. Right? Because your spirit is a part of God. It knows the truth.
I know it now.
Okay. So you know it now. Okay. That's even better.
I do reflect on my actions and I'm like, why did I do that?
Exactly.
This just is not like, and it could be things that happened maybe even a month ago that like, this doesn't make sense. It's not a rational thing, but it's
right.
It is mind-boggling to me because
so that reflection and that introspection is a part of your meditation.
I think what you just said is very interesting. You just said that if you elevate spiritually, you will see that it's not been done to you, but you did it to yourself.
Right.
And I for a long time I've been in a state of like, wow, why was it me? Why me? Why has it been done onto me? Now I kind of converted that. I asked myself, why would I have put myself into this situation and chosen that So it's more, there's a, I don't know, there's a kind of a turning point. I don't like
Yeah.
those situations because I still feel that they were very perilous or very dangerous, and
Right.
I shouldn't have been there. But I'm thinking that's not what I want for myself.
Right.
And I blame the others. Like, why do I meet people like that they do it to me? So now it's like, no, I have to. Now I'm questioning what kind of, if you will, state of mind I was that I put myself into those situations,
Right.
and they were, so
Right.
so I'm asking those questions now.
Which is great. Which is great
I don't know whether
because
it means that I'm going to die soon or not.
no, this is great because the reason we come on this planet is to break old patterns. Okay, they could be emotional patterns, they could be mental patterns, it could be anger, it could be fear, it could be sadness. The reason you're coming here is because that old pattern that you have, which is coming with you, you want to break it. Now you're the same person now is saying, well, why did I do things this way, or why did this happen? Same person, two different levels of consciousness, two different scenarios. You're the same person who experienced this before, and you performed your actions in a certain way, and now that you're looking back at it, you're saying, oh, wait a second, I did that, but was that the right thing to do? Maybe this happened because of this, but I could have done things differently, right? So your introspection and your reflection now is helping to realize your own actions and your own pattern, and a part of you is saying, wait, there's another way around this, or I could have done things differently, or I can do things differently now. I'm learning from that, right? And that's what your life is all about. As long as you're doing that, you're going in a conscious way, you're going up. But say you did that action, say you did something 2 years ago, and today you thought about the action and you said, and you're saying to yourself, it doesn't matter, I did what I had to do, right? I'm just going to move on, and I'm not going to think about it. You're not really changing.
I wish I was like that later.
No, it's two different things. If you forget about something, if something happened to you in the past, and in a future time you're going back and you're thinking about it, and a part of you is saying, you know what, that happened for a reason, there was something for me to change or something for me to learn, and I'm learning that now, okay, that's more constructive than saying, oh, this happened to me in the past, but I'm just going to ignore it because I don't want it to affect me. So the former, if you say this happened to me in the past and I want to learn from it and I want to change, then you're karmically going towards a positive path. But if you say, I'm just going to ignore it, right, and I'm going to continue moving in the direction I want to, then you're not growing spiritually because you're not breaking your old pattern. Your old pattern and your karmic actions, when you do something in the past and you do it unconsciously, and at some point in the future in your life you say, looking back at what I did right now, that wasn't correct. I could have done things differently. I realize what I did, right? If you can do that to yourself, then in fact, when people die and when they go into spiritual world, this is what they're doing. They're assessing their life and saying, I did this, and this. All these things that I did weren't correct. I could have done it differently, and I have to learn from that. But this, and this was good. You know what I mean? So when you go in the spirit world, if you look at Michael Newton and Brian Weiss, and when you're reassessing life between lives, when you're reassessing what you did, these are the kind of things you're going through. And then you're telling yourself, okay, so I have these patterns. These patterns are good, and these patterns are not good. I have to break it, right? What do I have to do to break it? So if you live the life of sadness, for example, and you were to die, that sad energy will go up with you. But upstairs, you're in a better position to look at what you did in your life and to figure out what's right and what's wrong. You see what I'm saying? Now, when you take rebirth, a part of that energy will come back because you still have to correct it. It's just that in the spirit world, you're more aware of what that energy is, and you're more aware that you need to correct it. Okay? But when you come back into the physical world, because you developed that energy in your previous life, it will be there in some form, but chances are you chose certain lessons in your life that will help you to overcome that, to break that pattern.
Makes sense.
Right? It doesn't mean that because there was sadness, you're doomed forever. No, it doesn't mean that.
Right.
You will carry that energy with you, but you'll become aware of what that energy is and that you need to correct it. And then in your next lifetime, you will pick certain circumstances which will help you to overcome that. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what life is.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what life is. So life is full of obstacles and difficulties, but we've chosen that so we can get into a better version of ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? But if you become a witness and if you sit in silence, you will realize this more now rather than going upstairs and realizing it. You know why? Because as a witness, you will go closer to your spirit, and your spirit will give you that information. You see what I'm saying? When you go upstairs, you drop the body. Your emotions and your thoughts are under control. You're not acting out of emotions control. It's more spiritual consciousness. So it's like you're in a more neutral state, so you can see exactly what you did. You know what I mean? And you won't be pointing fingers at others. You'll be pointing fingers at yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's the difference
Absolutely.
between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can do that during your lifetime, then you can achieve a lot more. If you can have a part of that understanding now, when you sit in silence, become a witness, become one with your spirit, and see what your spirit tells you. And your spirit will tell you, well, when you did this in the past, it wasn't right. You need to correct it. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why sitting in silence and reflecting is very important.
So what if you don't have a chance to correct it with the people that you were, it's done and over with?
So this is where the universal law of karma comes in, and it becomes a very big subject. You know what I mean? But the
So
reason...
you meet them in your next life.
So it's like a web, right? It's like a web where we're all connected. At some point, you will come into contact until one of you breaks that link. And chances are, this is what forgiveness comes in. Chances are you will have to use the power of forgiveness. Sometimes even to ask for forgiveness, and sometimes to give forgiveness and to try to move on. Because here's the thing. Say you're resonating at a certain level of frequency. Say you're here and the person you were with is here. Okay? So you're here and the other person is here. Either this person will bring you down, or you're going to bring the other person up. Or the third possibility is that this person doesn't want to go up and you don't want to go down. Okay? But you're still connected with this person with karma. So how do you break this? The way you break this is by being a bigger person, by using the power of forgiveness and letting go and moving on. Do you see what I'm saying? In a marriage, in a relationship, these are the three possibilities. One is here, one is here. The bottom one is pulling the top one down. The top one is pulling the bottom one up. You see what I mean? That can happen too. The third possibility is, which is a very difficult and the best thing to do, the wisest thing to do, is to try to finish this bond which is connecting the two of you, to break it. And the only way you can do that is to use the power of forgiveness and to let go. Do you see what I'm saying? Because before you're born, 2 people or 4 people or 5 people, they have a contract. They sign a joint contract where they say, okay, you have this problem, this problem, this problem. I'll try to help you to come out of it. The other guy will say, okay, well, you have this, this, and this. Maybe I'll try to help you with this. Then the third person will say, I'll try to help you with this. One will say, I'll become your mother. One will say, I'll become your brother. One will say, I'll become your partner. Let's see what we can do. Okay? But when you come down on earth and you use your free will a certain way, it doesn't always go the way you plan it. Sometimes your emotions take you in the wrong direction. Do you see what I'm saying? But then when you go upstairs, you look at that scenario again and you try to correct it. Okay? But there will come a point where some souls refuse to change no matter what. They're just going to be stubborn. You're going to say, I did my part. It was nice to know you. I'm moving on. But I'm going to forgive you for whatever happened. And you move on. You see what I'm saying? That can take 5 lifetimes. It can take 10 lifetimes. It depends on your relationship with that guy. That's how karma works. Right? So I hope that made sense to you.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot coming out today. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So, yeah, Noreen, did you want to say anything?
I added the poem you mentioned in the chat, the Kala Jibran. It's from the Prophet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
And what does it say again?
it's a little long. I can read it.
Oh,
if
it's
you
a little
want,
long. Okay, I just
but
wanted a quick.
I can happily read it if anyone wants.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
if you can read it, that would be good.
okay, I'll start from the top. So it says, and a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, Speak to us of children. And he said, Your children are not your children. They are sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrows that fly, so he loves also the bow that is stable.
Oh, wow.
So basically, God is bending us to do his will with
Right.
his kids, basically.
Yeah. So he's just letting you know that, okay, you've given birth to them, you have a certain bond, but there's another totally different aspect to them which you have to be open to. They come from the light of God. They come with their own thoughts, their own destiny. So they have their own mission and their own karma, so they can't be exactly like you. If you're trying to mold your kids into becoming like you, and if that interferes with their spiritual purpose, then that's interfering with the spiritual part, the spiritual dimension. That's what he's trying to say. So you can give them all the love and the nurturing and all the things that they need, but always be aware that your kids are something more than your own kids, right? They come through you, but they're coming from somewhere else, and they come with an entirely different purpose. So that's what he's trying to say. So you can do your part, but don't overstep the boundary as well, right? That's what he's trying to say. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, so I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the workshop. If there's anyone who wants, if there are any comments or questions you can share with us, you want to share later, you can always send it to me. So this workshop was dedicated to my mom. I know she's with us. I could hear some noises coming out from the kitchen, so that was her favorite place. So it's dedicated to her, and there's a few other entities here with us today, and I want to say thank you to them. And yes, there's going to be another workshop next month. It's the forgiveness workshop, so if you guys are available, that would be great. And I would suggest you do the meditation, the witnessing meditation. Do it for a few minutes a day, 10-15 minutes a day. It's something that can provide tremendous benefit to you. So just keep that in mind. Yeah. So any other comments for now, or everybody's good?
May the 1st is the forgiveness workshop.
Oh, May 1st?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So it was really nice to see all of you. I saw your cat coming there a few times. That was really nice. Cute cat. So I know they love the energy too. So it was all well and good. So yes, I enjoyed the workshop. Thanks for coming out. And if you have any questions at any point, you can always send it to me. Okay, so wishing you guys all the best on your spiritual journey, and just remember to sit in silence and spend time with yourself. It's very, very important.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you. That was really great. Thank
okay,
you.
great. Take care for now.
Take care.
Bye.
See you next time.
Okay, bye.
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 Bye.